Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag from the heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Well, John, we got a bunch of high school basketball to talk about. Really, we're going to start off with the boys basketball. There was some meaning in that meeting between Glasgow and Barren County on Friday night, because if Glasgow won the game and then they won their 2 games against Allen County, they could wind up with the top seed. And, you know, by the pill bottle, coin flip, whatever they do these days to break a tie in those circumstances. But it didn't work out that way because Lane Stevens absolutely caught fire, had a career night, and Barren did a good job of making sure he got the ball, and then if anybody missed, rebounding the misses. And then the other thing they did is they did a good job of getting in transition and scoring in transition in the second half. I mean, the first half and the second half of that game could not be more different than any game you've ever probably really seen. I mean, it's rare for a game to be 33-32 at halftime and basically be that score, because Barren scored, I think, the last 6 points of the half, and then the final score be 75-53. It's rare you see a game go like that, John.
Yeah, Barren got on a big run, and Glasgow did a really, really good job the first half, and they liked it. I'm sure they liked the tempo and liked how things were going. And you know, Barren has struggled all year primarily to make outside shots, and Glasgow played Barren the way a lot of teams play Barren, played 2-3 zone.
Yeah.
The difference was Barren made shots, and in particular Lane Stevens.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to be happy for Lane. He and his brother Colton, you know, they're seniors and have not got a ton of playing time.
Yeah. But
you know, they've done the right things. You know, they played freshman ball, JV ball. They worked extremely hard, and Lane came off the bench. Now, the previous Friday, he had a big 3. Only had 1, but he had the only 3 of the game, I believe, against Glasgow.
Yeah.
They kind of got the momentum changed the previous Friday.
Yep.
This past Friday, he had 6.
Yeah.
And his 3 to end the first half was as important as any 3.
Yeah.
But, you know, in fact, he shot it so well that Glasgow went to a box and chaser on him.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I was just so happy for him. Because he's not, you know, that's probably his best game he's ever played.
It was his career high, all off of 6 points.
And what it did, you know, if you watch Barren all year, it was like a shot of energy
mm-hmm.
to the team, because him making those 3s, number one, he's very well liked. The team was very happy for him. You could just see that in their faces after the game, and they were. I think he was the player of the game, you know, the Don Frank, you know, he got the award after the game, and, you know, it was clear that he was the player of the game. But what he did was, not only did he make 6 threes, which opened the game up, it also opened the floor up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Barren started just attacking inside and got the ball where they wanted to. And really, the difference all year for Barren, they've been good all year defensively.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, holding Glasgow to 50-something points is, you know, really good. They only had 20 in the second half.
Yeah.
But it's just the lack of being able to score. And who knows where this goes, you know. You don't have to go 6 for whatever every game.
Right.
2 out of 6 is good. Mm-hmm. You know, it opens the floor up. But, yeah, it's a big win. And I know it's disappointing for Glasgow because they were kind of in, you know, they had played them as exactly how they wanted to play them and led the entire first half until the last, basically, 10 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Because Lane Stevens, he hit a 3. That was his first one of the game that I think was off a set play. And then I think maybe Glasgow was up 7 or 8 whenever he hit that shot. I don't remember exactly which number it was. But then the Scotties just were unable to score, and then he hit the 3, which was not off of a set. I mean, it was off of a set play, except Glasgow defended it pretty well. Yeah. And then he kind of dribbled to his left and took the 3 with 3 seconds left, and it went in.
Yeah, that wasn't an easy 3. That was a, you know, it wasn't a set inside out 3.
Yeah.
You know, he had to dribble to the side, but he was feeling it, and you know, confidence is an amazing thing, and you know, who knows from the Barren perspective. When you struggle all year to score, that may be the life that could come into them. Yeah. You know, they got a really difficult game tonight at Bowling Green.
Right.
But who knows how this may have this could maybe inspire or whatever. He's clearly earned some more playing time, so he's going to get his shot and things like that. But yeah, from the Barren perspective, that was a obviously a big win. Glasgow, I know, was disappointed, but the Glasgow did get a big win last week. The win over Monroe County was a good win for them, and they needed that win. And the kid for Glasgow that continues to play well is the ones we've talked.
Bowling.
Yeah, Sam Bowling. I mean, he was really good against Monroe.
Yep.
And he was really good, particularly in that first half. First three quarters against Barren. I mean, he's just a hard person to defend. I think he had 18, 19 points, something like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
he had a steal and a dunk in the first half. That was kind of a momentum thing for Glasgow in that initial part. That made it look like it was going to be a very different game than the first meeting, and it was a very different game, but not in the way that it looked like it was going to be.
Right.
But going back to the Samuel Bowling, this is coming off in a week. I think he had 18 against Barren the Friday before, 31 the next night against Greenwood. I think it was
17 against Monroe.
Yeah, 17 and then 19 I think against Barren on Friday. He's been playing lights out. I mean, he's clearly, I don't know, from my perspective, he's clearly the best offensive player on that team in terms of what he can do.
He's pretty good. I mean, Glasgow's good. Offensively, in particular, Jackson Poland is, he especially when the floor is spread, he can get to the rim.
Going downhill, he's hard to deal with.
That's right. Serwinski had a good game against, I think, Monroe. I think he had 15 points. They've got some good parts. John Carter Myers is a nice player.
Yeah.
And Barren is not easy to score against.
Right.
That's the bottom line. I mean, it doesn't. They held Greenwood to 42 points on Monday night. So Barron's not easy to score. The question what happens when Barren scores? When Barren scores, that moves them way up.
Well, and going back to what you said about what does this portend going forward for the Trojans? If they can get Lane Stevens and Tay Pointer and I guess Colton Stevens some plays where they can hit threes just to make the defense. I mean, because if a team plays Barren man, maybe with the exception of Warren Central,
very few teams do.
Yeah, it's going to be hard.
Well, you don't
to play.
You don't even have to get them plays.
Yeah,
I mean, they're going to get shots. I mean, Tay and Stevens, they're going to get shots just because Garden. Aiden Miller and Aiden Nyken and Mason Griggs, who's had another good game as well. Mm-hmm. They're going to occupy a lot of people because they get in that lane.
Yeah.
So they occupy 2 or 3 players. So you don't have to run anything. They're going to get shots.
Right. I guess the key is, can they make those shots?
Making shots.
And if they do.
Well, can they make it? Yeah, they can make it. It's confidence.
Yeah.
And who knows, when you play like that in front of your rival, in front of a big crowd environment, that can do nothing but help you.
I've always been interested in the fact also that the way it happens sometimes in basketball, if one guy gets a hot hand, the other guys who can shoot,
it's contagious.
Yeah, suddenly they're like, oh, okay, and then they start making shots and things, change.
Making shots and missing shots are both contagious. It's amazing how it goes. That's right.
It really is. You would think it's a virus.
It is. That's correct. It is amazing how that goes.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's not the end of the world for Glasgow. The win over Monroe, I think, keeps them away from Barren. I mean, they still have 2 games, I think, this week with Allen, right?
Yeah, they do. They play tomorrow night and then Saturday, which is the makeup game. That's actually going to be also Glasgow's homecoming.
Right, and they don't have any more Monroe, right?
Right.
So
they're done there.
Yeah, so they're going to be away from Barren.
Yeah, Monroe looks like it'll be Monroe or Allen will be the 4 seed because. Really, Glasgow only has to win one of those 2 games, and they're going to be the 2.
Yeah, Glasgow's going to be 2 or 3.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter.
Right.
What matters is Barren and Glasgow, who I think are the 2 best boys teams, and I think it's clear. It's not even close. You don't want those 2 playing each other.
Right. Well, and one thing I will say about Monroe and Allen, for Monroe, John Harlan he's a good player. And I think 22, I think, is Arnett. I think he shoots a 3 well. And on some nights, those 2 guys can get hot on you.
Uh-huh.
They would be scary no matter who they're playing in that first round, just because if you've got a couple of guys who can get hot and score, that could be a problem. Allen doesn't seem this year to have a guy who really has been able to do that so far this year.
Yeah, they've struggled to put points up.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really a tough haul for Allen, no matter how it shapes up for them. I do believe that. Meanwhile, though, I think Monroe and Allen, either one of them could wind up as a 4 seed. I think, but I think if I'm playing one of them in the first round, if I'm Barren or Glasgow, the one I'd be more nervous about is the one who has a couple of guys. If you leave them open, or you don't even have to leave Harlan open, they will make shots on you, and that's the kind of thing that can be rough in the first round, that 15th district.
That's 2 weeks from now, too.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing. Yeah, the girls open 2 weeks from now. They play the two first-round games on the Monday, and then the boys play Tuesday and Wednesday, and then the girls' finals on Thursday of that week, and the boys' finals on Friday of that week. And then we get a day off, John, and then the regional tournament starts on the Sunday after that. I mean, it's no rest for the weary,
That's
I
right.
suppose.
It's that time of year.
Back to the Glasgow side of things, I think the one thing I would guess they would definitely want to see as they close out these last couple of weeks is finding some way to get on a winning streak, but especially finding some way to close out games because that's where they seem to have struggled, especially against better teams. Is like finishing those games, finishing those quarters, getting those last couple of points, last 3 or 4 points, and then being able to just hold off and hold on to the lead in the second half when they've had it. And I imagine that's something they got to get worked out before they get to the district tournament, no matter how the bracket shapes up.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's confidence going into the district tournament would be nice.
Yeah.
They've got Allen, I think, twice this week, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they should. They'll be heavily, in my opinion, favored over Allen both of those games.
Oh, yeah.
And then the next week, I don't have their schedule, but they normally play Franklin at the end of the year.
Yeah, I believe that is how they close it out.
Yeah, and Franklin would be a good test for them.
Yep.
But yeah, I just think Glasgow right now is 9-12, and they've gone through a rough patch of games. They did get the win against Monroe, but they've lost to Green and Greenwood and Barren twice during that stretch, and so confidence. They are a senior-laden team, though. They have gone through things. Mm-hmm. So those type of teams like that, you never know what can happen. I mean, you can turn it around real quick, and it's amazing. You like to have momentum going in the district. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes you can get momentum in the district just by that game. Just a shot here or a couple shots can make all the difference in the world.
I can think of a couple of years, I think, where you had good teams, and they closed out. They closed out a rough stretch at the end of the season, but then caught fire again. In the district.
I mean, these things can happen. That's right. I mean, but you have to have a conviction among your team that can happen. I mean, the players have to believe that.
Right. The Scotties, they close out. They got the 2 this week against Allen County, and then they play home against Cumberland County on the 15th, and they close out at Franklin Simpson. That'll be a good road game for them.
Yeah, that'll be a good road game. But they got a shot to go 4-0. But I mean, Franklin probably a slight favorite. Mm-hmm. It's not easy to play down there. Barren goes down there tomorrow.
Yeah. Speaking of Barren, I mean, we already mentioned this. They're playing Bowling Green tonight.
Franklin tomorrow.
Yep, Franklin tomorrow. And then I think
Cumberland Friday.
Yep, Cumberland and Friday.
It's boys only right now.
Okay.
The girls was against LaRue, and that's been canceled.
Right. I think Warren said in his message that he sent out that the girls were still looking to try to fill a game on Friday night. So we'll see how that shakes out. And then I guess they close out with their traditional
it's Metcalf Clinton.
Yep. So, and that Metcalf game will be really interesting next week, I do believe. Anything else you can think of about the area?
No, I was impressed. I saw the Barren Greenwood game.
Yeah,
and Greenwood's, they're for real. I mean, it was incredibly low scoring. It just shows you how good defense.
44-32 was
44-32, and I know Warren was disappointed. You can't beat good teams scoring 32 points. Obviously, It was another one of those.
I think it was 14-14 at half.
14-14, just a frustrating game in turn. That's what made the Glasgow game to Barren so special. They broke out making shots.
Yeah.
But, Greenwood is they need their best player back.
Yeah, Kate Stennett.
But they've got a lot of good parts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they are – I really believe them and Warren Central, Bowling Green, maybe.
Yeah.
Those are by far the top 3 teams in the region.
Yeah, you mentioned, I think, Logan Howard, son of William Howard.
Yeah,
I think he had a double-double against Barron in that game.
He did good. He played well.
Yeah,
Sure
people know him for his football, but he's not a bad basketball player either.
No, he's not. About 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah, big muscular kid, as you would expect. And I think they have a couple of young wings who generally shoot the ball pretty well. Now, I don't think they shot the ball as well against Barron.
No.
Probably because of Barron's defense.
Barron's pretty good defensively.
Yeah.
But Greenwood's for real. I mean, they finally have joined the club.
Right.
With Warren Central and Bowling Green.
I think the impressive thing about them is the fact that Cade Stennett went down in the first quarter, I think, against Warren Central. They ended up winning that game in overtime.
They have, that's right.
And they've won their games since then without him on the floor.
Right.
And it kind of is a testament to the depth they now have at Greenwood, which usually has not been the case in the past.
They're not as good without him, believe me.
Oh, no.
I mean, they only put 44 against Barron.
Yeah.
And you could tell they were missing that playmaker. Mm-hmm. But they can still win without him.
Yeah.
But that don't mean you're as good as you were.
Right. Well, that's all I can think of for the boys' basketball. We'll come back and talk some more about the girls' basketball game that was also played on Friday night. This is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, there was a girls' basketball game as well, and there are a couple of things about the Glasgow side of this game. Chloe Hale was not playing in it. Cynthia Austin started. She's a freshman. Glasgow struggled to get the ball down the court early. They were down 17-0, I think it was, in the first quarter. I think it was 17-2 at the end of the first. That was very different from the first meeting because it was 10-10 until about 3 minutes, and Barron rolled off on a 15-0 run in the first meeting the Friday before. And so, in a way, you might think, well, that's just terrible. But one of the things I thought Glasgow did after that initial struggle was they actually played defense fairly well against Barron, and Barron held Barron from hitting the shots the way they usually do because the final was 47-25. Now, Glasgow, it's not that Barron has an athletic advantage, but they have a physical size advantage pretty much everywhere on the floor, and that does seem to cause Glasgow a lot of problems offensively. And so that seems to be the key in that matchup at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mistake to say that Barron is just taller. Barron's not tall at all. It's one of the shortest Barron's teams I've ever had, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. Raven Ennis is the tallest player they pretty much play.
5'10"?
5'10", yeah. I mean, so they're not that tall. But, yeah, they do have they are at most positions, especially against Glasgow, physically stronger, and you can see how that works. You know, their press really gives Glasgow at times trouble. Mm-hmm. It was the second quarter and third quarter of the first game.
Yep.
And this one, it was a knockout blow early.
Yeah.
But and the game was it was over pretty quickly. Now, give the Scotties credit. I mean, they kept fighting, and I mean, at one time, I think they got it back down to like 14 or whatever. Mm-hmm. So they kept competing, but I don't think I think it's fair to say the Barron was really never really. I don't think the result was ever in doubt after the first 4 or 5 minutes. But you know, Barron did not. Neither team shot it well. You know, it was not a type of game in which, you know, a lot of shots were going in. I think Barron was 1 out of 11 from threes.
Yeah.
And Glasgow was 4 for 22. Right. So not a lot of made shots, but, you know, the teams, you know, just not a lot to say other than the press really bothered Glasgow. And for the first 5 minutes, Glasgow could not really get the ball down the floor.
Yeah.
Abby Varney continues her good play. I mean, she had 22 the night before earlier in the week against Greenwood. She had 12. I think Raven had 10. Katie Murphy had 8. Yeah. You know, pretty balanced. I think Macy Lockhart had 7. You know, nobody exploded against Glasgow. Mm-hmm. And I think Mia Cassidy had 9. She had all their points at halftime.
Yes.
She had 9 out of the 9.
Yeah.
And so, you know, Barron is a good defensive team. Glasgow, if once they got their defense set, mm-hmm. It doesn't matter how good defensively you are. If you throw it to the other team and they shoot layups,
what is that called? A free ball kind of.
You're not
run turnover.
Not free run. Now that you said it, I've gone completely blank on that. But yeah,
it's kind of a gimme, is what it is.
Yeah, you can't guard live ball turnovers.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah. But once, you know, the game got settled down a little bit and Glasgow didn't turn it over as much, you know, they did a better job I thought defensively, and they didn't quit, and that's a compliment. They kept playing.
Yeah, because when you are facing an opponent that you've struggled against for the last probably 4 or 5 years, well, I mean, maybe they haven't. Glasgow hasn't beaten Barren since, what was it, Olivia Houchins hit the 3 in the district tournament?
Yeah, it's been a while.
I mean, the fortunes flipped seemingly in that moment. Sure. Because that was Ellie Bartley's senior year.
Yeah, because Glasgow had a big run against Barren.
Yeah, and so it's totally turned over. So going back to your, they didn't quit. They kept competing.
They did.
Sometimes when you've lost to an opponent, especially like that, so many times, it's easy to say, well, here we go again.
And it's when you can't seem like to get the ball down the floor too.
Yeah.
That's frustrating in itself.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, we're not pandering to the idea that they didn't quit. We're not being polite necessarily.
Right.
I mean, it's for real. They competed.
I've seen teams quit.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. Through the years, we've seen a bunch of this.
I've seen teams. I mean, they don't just lay down, don't play, but basically mentally give up.
Yeah,
and that didn't happen. They kept trying to run their stuff, and Barren did Barren try to stop scoring? No. I mean, Barren wasn't real happy that they didn't make any shots.
Right.
So Barren is playing well right now.
They are indeed.
They are playing well. I mean, against Greenwood on Tuesday, I mean, I thought it was the best I've seen them play all year. And they destroyed Greenwood 74-45. And speaking of a team that couldn't get the ball down the floor, Greenwood, and Greenwood's got a winning record, and they got a really good player, and the Tran girl.
Yeah.
I mean, that game was over as quickly as the Glasgow game was over. It was like 27-4 or 5 at one time.
Yeah.
I mean, and Greenwood is arguably top 5 or 6 in the region.
Well, I mean, they were in the Daily News poll last week. It was Bowling Green 1, Barren 2, and Greenwood 3.
The game wasn't close. I mean, it was running clock.
Yeah,
got to be a running clock, and Barren just manhandled them. And I think Abby Varney had 22 that game. Mm-hmm. So Barren has kind of caught fire.
Yeah,
and has played well since they came off their 10-day little layover.
Right. They came back in that first game, played Monroe. I think the final was 44-40 or something like that.
They were behind a lot of the game.
Yeah, I mean, they scored the final 8 points of the game. Mm-hmm. And since then, though, even when they've not shot the ball well, they've been able to figure out how to grind out the game. And they do a good job when they're not hitting outside shots of working the ball inside and attacking the rim and that kind of thing. Yeah,
they don't throw it inside as much. It's penetration.
Yeah.
I mean, they may throw it off a cut,
but
they do a really good job. If you want to come out and get after them, they do a pretty good job of. In fact, their instincts is to drive it, and they've got several people who can do that.
Well, and going back to the
Abby Varney's one. I mean, she's a strong kid, and she's really good off the bounce.
Yeah, I mean the way this has worked out for her is I think maybe people focusing so much on Raven and maybe Addison shooting the 3 and maybe even Katie Murphy on the drive that they're winding up in these circumstances where Abby Varney's getting the advantage.
Well, you better not forget about her. She's averaging double figures.
Yeah, she's been lighting it up.
She's a very confident player and a very good player.
Yeah,
I mean she does. She plays. I was watching her the other day, and she's got some. Goes back a little bit. She got some Savannah Gregory in her from Allen in terms of she constantly moves.
Yeah.
Now Savannah Gregory was a big time player.
Yeah.
But I just watched Varney play, and when Savannah used to play, I mean she was a rebounding machine. And the reason why she's a rebounding machine is she never stopped moving.
Yeah.
And that's the way she plays on. I mean Varney does the same thing. She's just constantly moving. So she's always either getting open or getting rebounds and so forth, and she's really, really improved.
Talking about Savannah Gregory, she turned into a good outside shooter. But I remember when she was a freshman year, she banked in a 3 in the district.
Yeah.
And I think they beat Barren in the district off of that shot in overtime or double. Maybe it was Glasgow. But
it was Glasgow.
Yeah, but I mean, it was a shot nobody expected her to make.
Right.
And at the moment, Varney's not really an outside threat. She's a threat to a drive. And she's just a sophomore.
She can make shots, but she's more of a. I think she's made some threes, but I think she's more comfortable in that 15-foot range and so forth. She's made some, but she's turned into a really good player.
Yeah. Back to the Glasgow side of things real quick.
They got 2 big games this week.
Yeah, as we mentioned already on the boys segment, they play Allen tomorrow night, and then they play Allen Saturday. That's homecoming for them on Saturday. And they need to win both those games, just to be frank. to stay out of that 4 slot. Because right now, Barren is 20 to 25 points better than everybody else in the district, with the exception of that Monroe game when they came off the 10-day break. And, you know, I think everybody right now in the district would like to not be in that 4 slot.
Well, no, you got to be insane to say that you want to play Barren. It doesn't mean that you can't beat them.
No,
but
anything can happen.
Yeah, Barron's the toughest matchup for anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just common sense. You don't want to play Barren, and for Glasgow to stay away from Barren, they've got to beat Allen twice, and then it may still come down to a draw. I'm not for sure exactly how. I just know if they lose to them once, that they're going to be in that four spot. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if Barren is in love with playing Glasgow at Glasgow again either.
True.
You know, so Glasgow, who knows? I mean, they got Allen twice. Allen is an improved team from last year, but they struggle scoring. Mm-hmm. And I will predict the Allen Glasgow both games will be fairly low scoring. I'm just guessing. You know.
Well, and, you know, the interesting thing, we talked about Abby Varney scoring, but when you talk about 2 players who kind of have the ability to score anywhere, you have Raven Ennis for Barren, and you have Paisley Ford for Monroe, who actually has played pretty well lately. And
Mia Cassidy has.
Mia Cassidy.
Yeah, she has, we talked last week. She's averaging, on a team that does not score a lot of points, she's averaging like 15, 16 a game. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes, I think the key with Glasgow is you have to assume Mia's going to score.
Right.
I mean, she's proven that against everybody. Is Ashton Botts. Mm-hmm. You know, she needs to have big games. Kaylin Hale needs to have,
Chloe.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's all right.
Wrong sister. But they need that second scorer to emerge. And at times, Botts has stepped up there. Mm-hmm. Chloe Hale has. Yeah. And they just, they need that second score. Mm-hmm. Because it's hard to win when, you only have, when you're scoring 35-40.
Well, and right now, Coach Pippen is looking probably for Kayla Kirkpatrick, who's only in the 7th grade.
I like her.
A lot more minutes.
I do. I like her.
She's scrappy. I tell you what.
Yeah,
she's scrappy. And she's a good shooter.
Well, against Monroe, when Glasgow lost 59-49 against Monroe early in the week. Mm-hmm. She had 11. Mm-hmm. So she's young. A 7th grader, but she's obviously she's got a good future.
Well, and going even further back, the first game I remember her really getting being called on to play quite a bit toward the end of the game was the All-A game against Metcalfe County, where she hit the tying shot and the go-ahead shot.
Well, Chloe made the end shot.
Yeah, she made the one at the end that won the game.
Kirkpatrick sent it to overtime. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So since then it's been stepping up. And then they started the freshman Cynthia Austin, as I mentioned earlier, whenever Chloe didn't play on Friday against Barren. And she does some things. And so they've got a couple of players.
Oh, I think they've got a good future.
Yeah,
I do. I think their future is, it may not be this year. You don't know. You better take it when you can. I did learn that. You can't. You can't always look to next year or 2 years now. You got to have. You want to see a future, but you just never know.
Yeah.
You never know with injuries. You don't know who's going to play or here or there anymore. But, I like that. I think Glasgow has an opportunity down the road. If everybody stays healthy and stays together, I think they have an opportunity to be good.
Well, and even this year, I guess my point is that looking for that second person, there's the obvious ones in Ashton Botts and Chloe Hale in there. But also we're seeing a couple of other players who are starting to step up that in the right moment, they may be the one who makes those shots when everybody's putting a triangle and 2 on Mia Cassidy to try to make sure she doesn't even get the ball. That kind of jazz. Because you never know. That's the kind of thing that happens in a district tournament sometimes.
That's right. And, of course, tonight, going back to Barren, huge game tonight, right?
Oh, yeah.
And just for basketball in general, I say it's a huge game. It's a neat game to watch.
Yeah.
Has win or lose, whoever wins or loses makes no difference down there, to be honest with you. But Barren girls and Bowling Green girls, it's by far, we've talked about all year, it's the top 2 teams in the region.
Yeah.
And 2 teams who are very likely, extremely likely to face each other again.
As long as the bracket draw doesn't put them on the same side if they're the ones.
Well, they're still going to play. I think they're either playing the semifinals or the finals.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're being the finals unless.
Yeah, they're going to probably more than likely face each other again. Absence, injuries, or a big upset. They've kind of proven both teams to be the best. And we've said all year that, Bowling Green, it seemed to be the best, probably a legitimate top 10 team. They played the toughest schedule, and have done admirably well against some of the better teams.
They have 4 losses against that schedule.
Yeah, and knocked off Bullitt East.
Yeah.
So that's 2 of their losses is to McCracken County, who evidently they don't match up real well. But so Barron has to play at Bowling Green, and we'll just see. If I'm coaching Barron, you want to win, especially since you've lost to them the last several times. But I would almost, can I get a lead late, and if I lose, I lose. That's okay. I just want our kids to know that we can play with them. Yeah. Because Bowling Green just possesses matchups that nobody in the region has. Well, the Jones girl, who's 6'3" inside, is nobody has. It's not that she's big; she's talented.
Yeah, because she can shoot threes from the top of the arc.
And they have they're such a defensive oriented team. They're a strong rebounding team. Tisdale is 6 foot, can move her feet. And then you have Shelton to transfer over, and then they have some other nice pieces. They got some kids who may not do a lot of other things, but they got a couple kids who can come in and just shoot the ball. I'll just tell you, if you're a young player and all you can do is shoot, that's a good thing to start with. That's one of those deals where if you only can do one thing, shoot. That's a good one.
We were talking about that 30-point win by Barron over Greenwood. That's supposed to be the number 3, at least in the polls team, and I'm not sure that they're not the number 3, but it's just that the between 3 and so many other teams in the region, there's not a huge gap. Yeah, because I think Greenwood beat Glasgow by 4 the Saturday before, and it was a close game. Right. So there's not a huge gap. It's just that it's curious to see. Is it Bowling Green and then a huge gap to Barron, and then Barron and a huge gap to everybody else, or are Bowling Green and Barron close to each other?
That's true.
And we just don't know the answer to that. The problem Barron has, as we mentioned, is Barron's not necessarily a big team. They're bigger than Glasgow. Right. But Bowling Green has Kayla James, who's 6'3", eats up the paint and can step out and shoot. You have Meadow Tisdale, who's 6 feet and just strong. Then you have Sanaya Shelton, and she can just do everything. The head coach over there, Calvin Head, he almost has to kind of keep a leash on her because she can absolutely score. But the thing about her that we saw a couple of years ago in the regional tournament is he can put her on somebody defensively, and she can almost take them out of the game. Yep. And we've seen her do that over and over and over. So it's not the offensive side with Bowling Green so much, even though they can score points.
No, they're a really good defense.
Yeah, their defensive matchups are just so difficult for everybody else.
Yep, they are. They're really, really, they're an outstanding defensive team.
Yeah, so, a lot of people talk about the points and whatnot that these players can put up and that kind of thing, but that's the thing in the regional tournament that's really scary.
Yeah, it's an interesting time to play them. It's oftentimes the Barron Bowling Green game has been in January. Yeah. And now it's 2 weeks before the tournament. Right. So it's a pretty quick turnaround, but it's probably a game that would be I don't know how beneficial it is to Bowling Green because they've played so many good teams this year. Yeah. I think it's a really I think it's going to really help Barron win, lose. I wouldn't want to get beat 30, right. But being competitive nobody's like Bowling Green, and I really think deep down, the more times that you can play Bowling Green, the better off you'll be. Yeah. Now, if you're no good, you don't want to play Bowling Green anytime. But right. Barron's good, and they've improved. And I think the more times they can play, I think I really believe it's more beneficial from the Barron to Bowling Green perspective than Bowling Green to Barron.
Yeah. We're going to take just a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the upcoming Super Bowl there, John.
Okay.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, we got about 10 minutes left here. At 4:45, we're going to have the Campbellsville Lady Tigers coming on. Team features Bailey Pettigo from Barren County, who's been out because she had an injury. I'm not sure exactly when she's supposed to be back. But also Elizabeth Bertram from Barron's on the team and Ashanti Gore's on the team. They sometimes they don't play a whole lot. They get some playing action whenever the Lady Tigers, who I think are number 2 in the NAI polls at the moment, or number 3, are running over the opposition. They usually will get in the game, and so hopefully that'll happen tonight. So they'll be coming up at 4:45. So, but before then, over the next 9 minutes, we're going to talk a little bit about this upcoming Super Bowl. How do you feel about it? It's It's this coming Sunday. How do you feel about this Super Bowl?
I haven't thought 2 seconds of it, to be honest with you.
You were too focused on the Pro Bowl, huh?
No, I didn't even know they had one. I understand the 2-week recuperation for them, to be honest with you, but it kind of stops the momentum a little bit for the Super Bowl.
It does. It's not as bad as waiting for the college football playoffs to get started.
Yeah, that's worse.
Yeah, that's much worse. But it is. I do wish they would just turn around and play it. And they did try that for a couple of years. And I guess they didn't feel like they got the week's worth of hype that you get in this week.
Well, the only hype they've gotten has been bad hype.
Yeah, things have not gone particularly well for the NFL of late.
That's correct. That's all that's happened. It's been negative hype in terms of the coaching and all, who's being hired and who's suing who and all that.
And then the people getting arrested at the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, so they've had nothing but negative news. So I'm sure they're looking forward to getting this game going.
Well, and I actually hate the media week. I don't hate it. I like the dumb question part of the media week, and I don't mean what are you going to do with your future? Is this your last year? Are you still going to be coaching here? Blah blah blah. Are you going to? Not that. I love it when the people come from Norway and ask them if they like lutefisk or something, and they're like, what? I find that part amusing. And then the other thing, and the late great Paul Zimmerman, who wrote for the Sports Illustrated for years, always had some of the most fascinating stories about the Super Bowl because he did things like clock the national anthem from the first Super Bowl on. And so part of his write-up every year would be about the length of the national anthem and just little oddball things that he had. I appreciated that because everybody else is writing those other stories all week long.
Right.
And you just get tired of seeing it.
It is. It's over. It's obviously the most watched sporting event of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, just ratings would tell you that. I think it's the most watched television event.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's over. The hype is overwhelming. I just want to watch the game.
Yeah.
That's all. I'll watch the game, and I hope Cincinnati wins because they're local and all that. I'm for the. I don't dislike the Rams, and the Rams have a little bit of a local connection. Tyler Higbee played at Western.
Yep.
But overall, I'm for Cincinnati. I think the line is, the last I checked, still at 4.5.
I think favoring the Rams.
Yeah, the Rams are 4.5 point favorites. Yeah, for sure. Plus, the Rams are playing at home, but
allegedly. But I think that was the 49ers' home field.
Well, they're in their hometown. But I think the Rams are going to win. I don't know if they'll cover.
Yeah.
But it's so new to Cincinnati, and if they played last week, I would really like Cincinnati.
I would too.
I think this 2-week off and never been to the Super Bowl and a young coach, Zach Taylor.
There's so much
stuff.
Going on.
That's correct. And the Rams have been in the Super Bowl, I think it was 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Didn't play very well 3 years ago. Didn't play very well, but they got that experience.
Yeah.
So they know, kind of the ins and outs of this preparation week. And I do think that's an advantage. And I hope Cincinnati plays well and Joe Burrow continues to rise up. But I just don't I have to give the edge to the Rams because they've been there. Not all the players were there, but the coach kind of knows what to do, and I'm not for sure. With Cincinnati, it's so new to them.
It does seem like, historically speaking, that second trip to the Super Bowl for the coaching staff is very beneficial because they learn the things that they need to do to stay focused on, on the game itself and stay away from all the peripheral stuff as we were discussing. And a lot of times those teams that have been there for the first time, they get wrapped up in the peripheral stuff
the distractions,
and lose focus on the game. But I'll also say this about the Rams. A lot of the offense that they have is are different players. The defenses, a lot of the key defensive players are the exact same ones, especially up front.
Well, they played well in the Super Bowl 3 years ago.
Right. And then you've also added Von Miller, who has a lot of experience. I think he went 2 with Broncos. Mm-hmm. Was he player of the game in one of those Super Bowls, the MVP?
Yeah.
I mean, so, it's so they've added experience as well on the defensive side that's been there, done that.
Right.
And I do think that gives them advantage because the other thing about the Bengals, they get sacked 9 times against the Titans. Their offensive line, 8 times maybe, their offensive line is not great. It's just Joe Burrow and his receivers and Joe Mixon have kind of overcome that.
Yeah.
And so that would seem to favor the Rams as well. And maybe that's where the actual line comes from, not just the experience.
That's probably true. I agree. I agree with that. I mean, Cincinnati's hot. That's why I wanted them to play last week.
Yeah.
They've not. They defeated Tennessee, Kansas City, and the Raiders. 3 straight weeks. Of course, everybody's hot. I mean, the Rams are hot too. Knocking off San Francisco and Tampa Bay. I mean, that's pretty impressive as well. But it seemed like Cincinnati had a little bit more mojo going into it.
Yeah.
I don't like the break for them. I think the Rams will win. Would it surprise me that the Bengals win? It wouldn't surprise me. I'm pretty confident the Rams are going to win, though.
So you got a score for the game?
Well, I told you the spread was 4.5, and I don't know if I would. My gut kind of tells me 31-21, something like that. So they would cover that way, but I would never bet that.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I'm going to do the same thing I did in the national championship game. After all the things I just said about the Rams, there's something about Joe Burrow. I made that comparison, I think it was last week, to Joe Montana. Mm-hmm. Like he's never frazzled in any way.
He's not. I agree.
Yeah, that part just amazes me. And I would not be the least bit surprised if he figures out if he wins a game.
I wouldn't be. Not me either.
But there's the talent gap on, offensive line to defensive line is significant in the sense that usually gets you killed in games like this.
Especially if Cincinnati gets behind and they have to throw. He's a great quarterback. He's got great receivers, but you kind of unleash that defensive line for the Rams.
Yeah, and
both teams have great receivers, though.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, Chase and
Cooper
Higgins
Kupp over there,
and Cooper Kupp and what's his name, the star receiver for the anyway, the one that they traded from Cleveland. I've gone.
Oh blank. Yeah, Odell Beckham.
Odell Beckham.
Yeah,
I mean they got great receivers too.
Yeah, so I don't know, but I'm actually going to pick the Bengals. I think Joe Burrow figures out a way to win, and I think the final's 30-27.
Well,
and I also would not put any money on anything because I'm not a gambling man.
That would be fine with me. I hope Cincinnati wins.
All right. Well, anything else you can think of as we get ready to head out of here?
No, I mean, we can then transition the country maybe to, I don't know, NCAA basketball? I don't know.
Yeah.
But we're going to give them like a month of the year?
Yeah, probably. This is a good month for them.
Yeah. Football's over, and then we'll, be the draft and all that other stuff. But the NFL, that engine never stops.
No, they've learned to take control of the media landscape for 12 months out of the year.
It is a well-oiled machine with a few problems this past week or two, but it's hard to mess with the NFL.
Yeah. And you're headed out to go do the Greg Collins show again this week?
I am.
All right. Yep. Well, I know Mike Harris listened to it last week. He told me
he was there.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, he was there.
He said he enjoyed it. He said you did a good job.
Well, thank you.
All right. This is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be back again next week.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
Coming soon to your FM dial, this is Fox Sports Radio, WCDS Glasgow, AM 1230.